I get the honor of introducing my mother-in-law. She's been my mother-in-law for 25 years. And I like hearing from people who are running the race well and have run the race well. And my mother-in-law is Pat, is that woman. And I'm going to tell you a couple things about her that she won't tell you about herself. And unless you're in the family and you know what's really going on, you wouldn't know these things. But we get a chance to hear from Pat as an encouragement to our heart. And a couple things about her: she's brilliant. She's very smart. You can't outwit her. She's an investigator. She loves to figure things out. A puzzle is her joy. She's practical and rational. She loves her family fiercely, and she will fight. She loves the underdog. She'll defend the underdog to the death. And she's a bulldog for the gospel. If you're going somewhere in the world and you're not sharing the gospel, don't even talk to her about it. You're wasting everyone's money and time, right, Mama? And when she met Luis at Multnomah in 1960, I don't know, something a long time ago, she knew that she was called to full-time ministry growing up here in Portland, and she had a burden for unreached people and for the nations of the world. So when she met this Argentine young man who wanted to be an evangelist, she knew that he was a good partner for the kingdom. But a couple days ago, she told me something. She said, when we began our life in ministry, I was doing what I was capable of doing, but I was contributing to something that was way beyond my skill set. She saw the opportunity to be involved in the lost coming to faith around the world. So as they began their life together, her role and sacrifice was just as valuable as his. Luis says in his most recent book, Pat and I have often talked about how we wished we could be together more, but the whole point of our lives was winning people to Christ. That's what we worked for together. Even when we were thousands of miles apart, we were working side by side. We did different tasks, but we shared the same goal. Most importantly, we shared a master. From the beginning, we have lived to lead as many people as possible to Christ. Everything else is good, but secondary. And that is the way my mother-in-law has lived. One of her verses from ministry has been John 12:24. Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. And death is hard, sacrifice is difficult and ugly and challenging. But the hours turn into days, and the days turn into months, and the months turn into years. And a life of sacrifice that Pat has given for the gospel has brought many into the kingdom. So I want to commend her to you. And she's an example to me and should be to all of us women who are serving our King in ministry, that our sacrifice produces a harvest. And it's hard to sacrifice. I don't like to do it at all. But that's where the harvest is. Mama, will you come and share your heart with us?
I don't know where to start. I won't contradict anything that Wendy said, but I have wonderful daughters-in-law, and it's been, the kind of the culmination of yearning over the years, producing boy after boy, and thinking, it would be so much fun to live around girls, and God has given me wonderful daughters-in-law. Wendy is right up there with the best of them. I just confess and repent of all the lacks in the people that they married. You know, I did. But listening to the what you can do with an iPhone, it's just irresistible to me to share with you, and probably an unimportant part of the past. We're now looking backwards with great clarity. We can't figure out what we did yesterday, but we're really clear on what happened 60 years ago. And one of the things that I don't think younger people can realize is how amazingly cut off we were in the early days just from information. On the 26th of December every year when we were serving overseas, we tried to call my folks. It was a total waste of time and incredible amounts of money to have everybody, hello, oh. And then if you talk over the top of each other, you cancel each other out so nobody hears anything. And that was it. And it was just life the way it was. I don't even know how we communicated, you know, how we got important things across. But picking up the telephone was not one of them. Sometimes Luis would go, we came up with a plan because of disasters in the early years, of me thinking he was coming home after a long trip to another country in Latin America, and he didn't appear, and then I'd get all hot and bothered and really upset about it, because, you know, I just think he's dead out there somewhere. And so we decided that we would only talk in generalities about when he would be back. And it was always a surprise. Oh, there you are, yeah. And but that's just the way it was. You just could not communicate. Now we communicate to the death. That was the way it was in those days. Very, very fragile communication. Let's see. I don't even know where to start. I want to encourage to say, well, what have you learned in some 50, 60 years of ministry? That's too big a subject. One thing what affects me and what has been key in my thinking is not necessarily uniformly important to the rest of the evangelizing world, but these are things that I remember that I thought way back when. And one of them is that I want us to be respected. It just irritates the dickens out of me that sometimes, I pick up stuff that's not there. I pick up offenses, I pick up offenses that I know probably aren't there. And that's why I'm married to a good person to say, hon, I don't really think they meant that. But I am offended by the thought that preaching the gospel is simplistic, and of course, well, I guess if you can't do anything else, it's a very simple message, and you just keep repeating it over and over and over again. So good for you. But the rest of us are smarter, and we nuance things. We look at theological implications of this teaching and that teaching, and we put names and titles on everything. We talk about the atonement and so on, and what does the atonement really mean? Well, I honor anybody who spends their entire life preaching the same old. The only thing that really matters But when I was young, I was really ticked off. I wanted respect. You know, what do? Oh, my husband, he preaches, he does evangelistic outreaches of all kinds. Oh, really? What is his message? And so you repeat the gospel message. Well, is that it? Is that all? Yeah, that's all, because that's the only thing that really matters. It's not the most popular, not so much now. I think maybe my radar is not as nearly as sensitive and fine-tuned as it used to be. But I think that it isn't the most respected branch of Christian activity. And as one of the really, really old-time guys said, when somebody critiqued his message, because, there are people that God, I guess, has placed in the world just to listen and see if you leave out anything. You didn't say, let's see, well, there's a certain word. You didn't say repent. Well, yes, I did. I said it in other words, and you just missed it. Yes, there is a complete gospel message, and we have to be faithful to it. But I think, I don't know who it was that after listening to a long explanation about how they had fallen short in their message, and he said, I like the way, how do you do it? And the person says, well, actually, I don't. Well, then I like the way I do it better than the way you don't do it. Everybody has ideas about how it should or should not be done, and that you need to build a relationship. Well, we can build real fast relationships, and the important thing is the transmission of the message. I like the way everybody has ideas of how it should or shouldn't be done, but no one's actually doing it. I think it's an activity that everybody that considers themselves a follower of Jesus should be involved in. I think Wendy has already alluded to this, that when I was young, the world was different. I've got more time now to think. We sit around the house now and think about what was going on when we were young, when we were making decisions, making lifetime decisions. Well, we thought, whether it was true or not true, it was a vital thing that communism was going to take over the world and take the gospel away from us. It was going to take away the possibility of spreading the good news. We were in real, we had bunkers. We have friends in California that could live for 6 months underground when we were attacked by the atomic bomb or whatever, the hydrogen bomb that was going to blow us all to bits. And then we had an enemy, and he was committed to moving his ideology one step further. And I remember thinking, when I was making decisions about life's priorities, I remember thinking, if he's willing to die to press his ideology 1 mile further, then I should be willing to give my life to something that really does make a difference. And but then I also got smart. I got realistic at some point, because I had made statements about what I was going to do, but then I didn't do anything. I just taught school, and I began to realize that I really didn't have any giftedness that would particularly, I just timid and had better ideas in my head than I could actually do anything about. And that my gifts lay in other areas, but not in the proclamation of the gospel. So it wasn't my gift. And you may feel the same way. It's not mine either. But I attached myself some 58, 59 years ago with someone who was, this is who I would be, this is what I would do, what can I do? And we got married, and what could I do to make him more effective, to make his life smoother, and to stand up for the worth of a lifetime of preaching the same old message. And I recognize that it's very easy to get sidetracked onto things that are good but not the best. And over the years, we have reviewed what we do and why. I think we looked up a verse this morning, the one where Jesus said, the person who gives up father and mother for my sake in the gospel will receive great rewards. I've read that the average lifespan of the evangelist is 10 years or less, because it is hard. It is hard partly because I think we feel that a lack of respect. Well, get over it. I mean, that's just such, looking back, it's so silly. We say we've done enough. We deserve more. We deserve rest. We probably, one of the hardest things is the lack of time together as a couple. And when you think about the large amount of information that we have out now on what makes a good marriage, and we struggle to keep our marriages strong, and yet it's we have kept a marriage strong by being thousands of miles away from each other. Now the tables are turned, and we are in a house that's smaller than the last one we lived in, and we share the same office. And our chairs, our desks are back to back, and that's the way it is. And it's fine. But we do have more time to think about things, and think about, very little would we say, I guess, that, well, if we had that to do over again, we would have done something different. Not really, I don't think. I like to think that when Luis is in some far part of the world, he is not worrying about us. Maybe he should have, but he didn't. Yeah, he probably should have sometimes wondered what we were up to. But there is a line in one of the contemporary songs that we sing today, and I can't remember any of the first part of it, but the part that I really love is where it says, "And shout it to the masses." I think, man, somebody who wrote that realized that is really where it's at. That is great. Shout it to the masses. And whenever you use the word masses, it sounds like you really don't care, because they're just a great blob of people. That is not true. Masses, when you say the word masses, you're talking about people, individuals, just a little bit closer together, but that God cares about them one by one. And there's nothing, I used to kind of cringe and when Luis and some of our young coworkers back in the day would sit around and think, how many people can we get in this room? And you think, well, that's not godly. That's really, kind of a low level of. One time we took the kids in Colombia to, I think it was a velodrome or something where and we Andrew, you weren't there because you weren't born yet, but or else you didn't. Anyway, you didn't go. And it was the Harlem Globetrotters, And I know that Luis and his sidekick were, the only thing they were thinking about was how many people can we get in here? And that's the evangelistic gift, you know. And it's not because you don't care about individuals. You care passionately about individuals. Otherwise, you would have looked for another line of work. So shout it to the masses. And a verse that we think about a lot lately is the one where it just says in kind of I don't know, it's in passing in a way. It says, and David, after he served his generation by the will of God, well, he died. It says he slept, but that's just a neat way of saying, or a soft way of saying he died. But he served his generation by the will of God. And sometimes when Luis and I get, between the two of us, we sort of egg each other on, you know, like, well, they just, today it's not as good as it was in the old days. We serve our own generation. We did our best to serve our generation by the will of God, but we are very excited about the generations that are coming up behind, and we are so grateful that they know how to reach, that you guys know how to reach them, you know how to reach people, and you have a passion for what it's going to take. But some of the sacrifices that took place in the 1950s and 60s to get the gospel out in a very different looking world, nothing's changed. Everything stays the same. And so I'll leave you, I hope, a little bit encouraged that this is your hour. We say over and over again to ourselves, this is the last time we're going to speak in public. Probably knowing both of us, it's probably not true, but it is, let's face it, we panic that we will use the wrong word, and to be honest, I do forget words. I panic that I can't remember the words that that's the way it is. So it's all yours, okay?